Hello and welcome to another episode of Blockchain Gaming World. We're in fact on episode 106. I'm John Jordan, and joining me today, I'm very pleased to have Shaykip from Infinite Arcade. How's it going?
Good, thank you, John. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very well. Looking forward to this one. So, I guess a bit of preamble before we start. Full disclosure, I'm working with Infinite Arcade now in a very sort of advisory capacity. I'm not doing any of the clever stuff, but just so people know that. And I've been talking to Shaykip for a while now, certainly a couple of months, about what they're doing, and I think it's really fascinating. So I'm very pleased to be associated with them. Tell us about yourself, Shaykip. How do you get into games? What have you been doing? You've been doing some super cool stuff, and then how did you get into the blockchain bit?
Sure, yeah, thank you, John. I mean, as a player, like it's been a long enough time to probably, ideally, best to skip that part. But Ultima Online, I'm proud of my Ultima Online sort of past. Fell asleep on the keyboard many times for that game, and also the first sort of glimpse into real community and how that all works. So that was definitely fun. My first real sort of business was an ad network in mobile space. I'm Turkish from Istanbul, so we started with my co-founder then that business in 2009, and eventually we sold it to Ad Colony, who's been one of the early players in the gaming sort of monetization and user acquisition space, and that's how I got more sort of closely involved professionally with games. And then with two friends from the Mobilike and Ad Colony days, with Berk and Jamal, my co-founders at Coda, we started Coda 3 years ago. So that's what we do there is we build studio tools, developer tools to help the smaller teams, earlier stage teams get to success faster. They are typically 5 to 25 people studios. They sort of most often work with publishers. And they need help with commercialization all around, like finding the right idea, validating, testing, analytics data, and then eventually scaling the game. So that's like my day job. And we, since a few months, have been working on Infinite Arcade. That's our effort to fulfill the same mission as Coda, actually. We're helping the sort of the long tail of millions of people who have fun and passion in making games, but who typically struggle in the free-to-play paradigm to make money because of the level of competition there and sort of the funding and the skills and the talent you need. And we believe Web3 opens up a lot of interesting things to potentially help a wider base of creators to get to success. On a personal level, I guess I'm father of three, live in the woods somewhere in England. Enjoy the rain, as it's currently the case. Have been involved with crypto for 7-8 years now. Invested in a bunch of funds, startups, etc. So following fairly closely over the last 2 years, and finally have an excuse to get involved with my many brilliant ideas that my team loves to hate. That's me in a nutshell.
So I guess I'm going to sort of dive into a little bit. So you said it sounds like you've been involved in sort of crypto for a while. So was crypto, just something that sort of intellectually sort of interested you as a sort of new payment system? I know sort of Turkey has always been Turkish community has been quite interested in crypto as well. But why did you get interested in crypto, and then how did the bit that you could sort of realise that would work for gaming come in?
Yeah, so in the very first sort of moment where I got to invest in Bitcoin, I think 2014-15, it was nothing more than like, hey, we had just sold my previous company, so I had a little bit of money, and I was like, it sounds incredible what this could become. Personally, I experienced sort of like Internet of Information, like basically just blowing through all the glass ceilings you can think of, growing up in an emerging market. And then thinking like what it could do to people if value, money, assets, the hardcore stuff, if they also get to go through tables instead of banks and stuff like that. So that was how much of this is hindsight? It's hard to sort of disconnect. I guess, but like definitely very excited back then already. Invested and held on to whatever I invested at that point for all these years. Never really sold anything. And then in 2018, after Ad Colony, I had 6 months off. My first son was born, and we both, my wife and I, we took some time off. and I just spent a lot of time listening to a bunch of podcasts. And around that time, this is right after the sort of big sort of crash, beginning of 2018. A lot of stuff was still, as far as I could see, still very much in the sort of infrastructure layer, protocol layer, I'm I've been in tech for a while now, but I'm at my core like a business guy. I'm a sales guy, really. So I said, okay, probably this cycle isn't the best time for a profile like mine to come and contribute, because it's very early. But I was obviously proven wrong in sort of early 2021. Um, I mean, that's when I became aware of the many incredible things happening on the sort of gaming front, crypto gaming front. To be specific, Axie obviously sort of woke a lot of us up. Axie Infinity and the sandbox and all of that was just happening, and I only then sort of realized that it was actually being proven at scale, early scale, those days, and I still think we are at the very, very beginning of this entire journey. But that's when I realized, okay, this is an area where I can finally also, join as a operator, as a builder, if that makes sense. We are early stage business at Coda. We are 3 years old, only really about 50 people. So, but even then, it still took us a while to, like figure out our role, what we should be thinking about when we think about Web3 and all, and that's the last sort of 6 months basically.
Cool, good. No, that's I think even for those of us in the space, early 2021 was was quite eye opening. That all this stuff people have been working on for a while was suddenly everyone was taking seriously. So that was, you weren't the only one who was surprised. But I guess from my point of view, when we first sort of started talking, what was interesting was, you can imagine, or at least I can imagine, these sort of heavy duty sort of PC RPGs, or some of these sort of games that people get really involved with and spend thousands of hours in, and heavily monetized. And you can imagine blockchain sort of working for those, because those are sort of you can imagine sort of audience that they would attract. And to a degree, we've sort of seen that. I guess Axie is to a degree sort of that sort of thing. But I guess what's interesting is with Coda. Correct me if I'm wrong, but most of the people who are using that are making sort of casual, hyper casual games. So very, it's massively exploded sort of as part of the mobile sector over the last couple of years. Billions and billions of people playing these games. But those were not the sort of games that I would have been expected to sort of be trying to get into blockchain kind of fairly early. And that's sort of what, with Infinite Arcade, which we should talk about now, that's sort of your vision, isn't it? Your vision is to get these sort of, kind of hyper casual mobile games, and then build sort of blockchain structures around that. So why do you think sort of that can happen now? Why is that the area that you are focused on?
Yeah. So what Infinite Arcade is indeed it's an effort to try and reduce or minimize the entry barrier for this sort of mass studio base all over the world. Unity say they have 10 million customers, various sort of levels of engagement, and then we track 120,000 studios. These are probably it translates to million plus actual people. It's a huge creator base. And when we talk to them, when we send out surveys and etc., like there's incredible interest in the space from the creator side. But it's hard to hard to do it, of course, because community building is new, tokens are new, smart contracts are new, all of it combined, it becomes a very sort of complex sort of system that you need to design and maintain, and of which big part you don't control, which is also something new that we all are trying to get our heads around it. So it's very complex, but in the end, like any good tech, you and I are both old enough to have seen a couple of cycles of these. Any good tech just disappears eventually. Like we don't, the bird strangling noise, that was part of our daily life that comes out of a modem. But now we don't strangle birds anymore. You're just online. You pull up your phone and it's connected. So
Yeah.
and I expect in all my I guess naivete, I like that. We'll see that happen with blockchain and Web3 too. Like my mom doesn't care like how things work; she just uses them, and she same for me largely. But of course, So hence, I would expect the same sort of consumer needs and demands and desires to somehow, you know, find their place on with these tech as well, or benefit from this type of new technology too. And I mean, obviously, we are not alone. A lot of Coda's peers, like larger companies, small companies, there, like a lot of them are also thinking the same way. And Yeah, the early players are like the early people are engineers, cryptographs, even like in early stages, like very much coming from a deeper thinking sort of habit, and the games that are there right now that will reflect those. But to get to mass, you need to offer something that will also be mass friendly. Axie Infinity isn't difficult to play once you're in it. I mean, but it still is way deeper than your hyper-casual game or your match-3 game that you pick up, and it's so intuitive and so shallow on purpose that you get to start playing it nicely in a few seconds. Even that's the whole point. Hence, I believe if this technology is to go mainstream, it will need to become very user friendly, and UX overall to get your money in and all that, like that's not necessarily in our control, but that's a big part of it, and we bank on the industry at large to get that right. On our side, we just wanted to experiment with if you unlock this kind of creator base, supply typically drives demand in these kind of marketplaces. Can we drive demand? So that's like big picture end state sort of view that we have. I think there are enough players now, about 3 million is sort of the number a lot of people use, 3 million wallets that play any kind of game. And there's concentration in places like Philippines or Vietnam where you have, million plus people playing. There's enough, I think, people and like sort of density that you can test things at proper scale. And this is sort of our effort to see if there is demand for this type. So that's our first goal, to bring choice to that community, choice to that existing crypto native player base. Hey, you guys, play Pegaxi, Cyborg, Axie Infinity. These are, great games. You like them, you enjoy them. Here's a casual choice that you can continue playing evenings, watching TV or whatever, in the classroom or in a meeting, whenever you play those games typically. And it comes with what you like, which is the earnings and which is the assets and which is the ownership piece. So that's why we thought it's time to try this. Demand from creators is there, and players are, I think, like looking for different games is what we hear from them. So this is why we wanted to start it now.
So from that point of view, you're sort of a what we would call like a B2B sort of operation, so business to business. So you're not looking particularly, although you will have some of your own games, but you're not particularly going out there and building all the games for the users. You're looking to get existing game developers who are interested in Web3 blockchain stuff to use your tools and get their games out. But we seem, over the last sort of few months to have had, certainly in terms of some of the hardcore gamers having a backlash, and some of the, it seems to be for some of the hardcore game developers as well, that it seems like they're not very interested, or in fact sort of quite anti-blockchain. So from what you're sort of feeling, obviously your sort of creator audience is different. That's people making sort of mass market mobile games. Do you feel that they are at least not very negative to it, and at least are sort of open to find out what this new thing is?
You mean our developers or the players of the games that we work on?
No, on the developer side.
Yeah. So so there's, I guess, people are on different levels in the spectrum of how much they are ready and not or not. I mean, mostly very positive out of studios that we engaged, that we work with at Coda. We're like, this is the new thing some of us are working on. Are you interested in participating? It's been exclusively positive. So they're like all interested in trying. I think the big uncertainty is like, what is it going to cost me? What is it going to take away from my core pipeline? What it's not money necessarily, but like what is the risk for me? And given they work with Coda, they know us, so there is that credibility there for them. So that's why I think like it's not necessarily representative of the entire ecosystem, but like within the Coda ecosystem, it's been pretty positive. There is, I think, a very healthy amount of, if this gets hacked, if this gets siphoned away, like what are all the things that can happen to it and that we hear of. like I don't want this to come back and bite my studio brand and impact my hiring or impact my
Yeah.
sort of, or get me in legal. So that's I think there. Not coming from everybody, but there's definitely I think good amount of people within that group that are that are still figuring out what kind of risk this represents. Interestingly, though, like
Mm.
it's a little bit like the early days of hyper casual. Also, a lot of the entrepreneurial, driven, curious people that have been early in various areas are also early here because it's just like their nature. I mean, there's obviously some risk involved with
Yeah.
all of this because you're putting real money into in various places that you were really not dealing with before. Apple takes care of all payments for us, and then ads wise, partners like Facebook, Google, Apple, and they sort of so studios really didn't touch actual cash until now. Now we are all sort of like right in there. So. Anyway, so I think overall positive, but I also think we are looking at a different, much less conservative, I would say. They like if you have a lot to
Yeah.
lose, you end up being, like more conservative, more sort of fearful of new stuff. In hyper casual, it's a it's a knife fight, anyways. It's we are every day in the streets, trying to like it's so I think the studios we work with, they are used to uncertain. They are used to like trying to beat competition, etc. So
Mm.
all in all. I feel also because of that, it's the right type of segment to work with. And the games they work with, they're also
Yeah.
very low commitment games. The relationship with the user is like 3 days long, maybe a week. So there isn't a lot of
Mm.
ownership. Hey, I made this game happen. I own so much, and like I don't want NFT scam to come. Like the players, they're first of all mostly Gen Z, which is I think way more open to
Mm.
this new world than us millennials or whatever. I mean, that's not just
Mm.
saying, but like all the data out there shows this. Plus, the relationship with the games is very, very casual, almost like transactional. So they don't necessarily have
Yeah.
a big commitment to the game, which we like because it gives us opportunity to produce more content for them coming from different sources. Um,
Mm.
um, which represents different kind of engagement with the player, different kind of sort of relationship, but still creates more room for tests and experiments. And if you don't like it, you just move on to the next
Yeah.
thing, which you're already doing anyway. So now that there's the blockchain component, it doesn't really change much in that relationship. So almost like compared to the examples you mentioned with a lot of backlash from players, etc. It's a more compatible field because in general it's very high pace and very open to new things.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right there, and I think that's sort of why it's sort of when I was thinking about hyper casual coming to blockchain, I was looking at it the wrong way around, and as you say, sort of people who are making hyper casual games are extremely focused on sort of very small margins around sort of UA, and obviously if someone has a hit, everyone's sort of copying it, and everyone's as you say, it's quite interesting. You said sort of a knife fight anyway, because just you have to have a different mindset from making a big PC game that's going to take you 5 years to make, and it's going to be the best graphics. I mean, that's just on the developer side, it's just totally different. And you're right, the hyper casual is that entrepreneurial driven thing, and I think that's the reason that pretty much every hyper casual company that I've spoken to or seen press releases from, are very clearly looking at sort of Web3, and I think at a sort of low hanging fruit level, that's because, as you say, hyper casual games are sort of here today, gone tomorrow. If you keep someone for a week, you've done amazingly well. One of the things clearly that something like an NFT could do or a token system could do is help on that retention level. So that's sort of interesting how that will play into that. So let's talk a little bit more. We've not gone into much detail about sort of Infinite Arcade. Maybe should we approach it from a player point of view? So if I was playing a game, I downloaded a game from the App Store and it had Infinite Arcade. It was sort of made with that system. How would that be different? What would my experience be? Where would I as the user sort of get the blockchain bit?
Sure. So the first version we are going live with, we try to design it like with absolute top priority is simplicity and not
Yeah.
breaking the existing fun of the game, existing balance of the game.
Mm.
And believe it or not, there is some aspect of that even in hyper casual games. I mean, they have to be fun. So we thought of this as a very thin layer of almost like an additional layer of engagement with the player. So when you download a game, one of the first games that will go live with is one of Coda's games, Rope Rescue. Right, Rope Rescue. You download on the App Store, and then you will see an IA button on the upper left corner of the game. That's a small round button. It's almost like a new sort of placement. And then you tap on that. It pulls up the dialog where you can sign in with your MetaMask or any other wallet supported by Wallet Connect. And then if you have one of the Infinite Arcade NFTs in your wallet, it will automatically find it and let you into the sort of play and earn version of the game, which means every level you finish, based on the speed you finished it compared to the rest of the audience, which is a nice and slick way to normalize the game difficulty across all games. So it just basically puts you in the spectrum of the game, and then if you're top 10 percentile, you get certain amount of tokens. If you're bottom 10, it's a different calculation. And that's the common currency across the entire sort of Infinite Arcade network, time and skill. And then for every level you successfully finish, based on these factors, you earn some of the some tokens. The in-game token is called Tick, Token of Infinite Choice, the ticks you can then go and exchange for other currencies, or you can go invest it back into the ecosystem by buying more NFTs or doing other things that will be possible in the future. So that's the experience for someone who already knows, okay, I have this NFT that I already bought because on Discord or wherever I saw this, and I went to the Infinite Arcade website and I come in. And so for anybody else, for the time being, who's not aware and who's just not looking for something like this, they can just play the game as it is, no difference, no changes to the game. If they see the button and they're curious and they want to see what's about, they can still go on there, and there's a link to the Discord, etc. So we are of course educating people, but the goal isn't to sell these NFTs from within the game. The goal isn't to force you into anything you wouldn't be doing. So it's truly free to play and play to earn in one, which gives you the option to do either or both, and that's it. That's we realize this is very simple. We realize this is very shallow. It's all sort of part of the design to just make it as simple as possible to get both sides in and start talking and start engaging, experiencing this, and then from there, we want to go deeper with certain studios who want to go deeper. They should be able to build more sort of deep designs and all that. But at the time being, V1 is like, okay, you buy this NFT on a marketplace, OpenSea or whatever else, you come back, you sign in, and there's earnings. It's just replicating the core, bare bone loop of play and earn. And the difference is it gives you the option to play any game. Initially, there's I think 8 or 9. These are proven, fun games that have had probably over 100 million installs in their lifetime. Now you get to play them with earnings, and we are working on new games coming on board. So that's the user experience for both normies that are not aware of any of this, and then crypto natives that are aware and coming into the game with that knowledge.
And that definitely seems to be becoming the template already. So Netmarble, the big South Korean publisher, has a game going live called Golden Bros. And again, that's going through app stores, which is obviously the main advantage for this approach. So you're putting out a standard free-to-play game. If you don't know anything about NFTs or blockchain, you just sort of download the game and play it. If you do have NFTs, you connect to a wallet, or your account is connected to a wallet. There's different ways of doing that, and then you can do all this other sort of stuff, and generally that's around earning rewards. That definitely seems to be, in some ways, it clearly you're doing that because Google and Apple don't allow you to do kind of crypto stuff within the app, but equally it does help on the simplicity, because it is this very, it is this sort of pure simple thing. If you don't know what's going on, you just play the game like normal, but then there is the sort of opportunity for you to educate people, and you get the advantages of obviously going through the app stores, which is even Axie Infinity is reworking itself to go through the app store. So that's seems to be where we are.
It's a proven, well-oiled distribution machine. Of course, the state of affairs is that you pay 30% to the stores, you pay 60 to whatever 75% to the distribution partners like ad networks and stuff, and but it's only because the market is at such an efficiency level that only if you're really large you get to play in that arena. Like here, App Store will be a way to download the game, but it's also what we are interested in, of course, like the new ways to discover these games, right? Like for players, it's through community. They become part of something that's earnings, but also when you actually are in the discourse and follow, these people are friends and they believe in the cause, and I mean it's part of the early adopter sort of, I think, ethos, generally speaking.
Yeah.
But it's discovery through social like interactions, that is not algorithm curated on a feed base, but an actual conversation happening on Discord. So um, for those, I think we will go more and more bold over time with the way we present the games
Yeah.
and the opportunities. And they will probably, if you know you're a wallet holder and you signed it already, we might be sort of more immediately in your face with, okay, these are the things you can do in the game, and of course very sort of curious about what's to come with the app stores and the payment methods. Yeah, of course it would be better if you can sell the NFTs in the games. 30% just like so far doesn't seem to because it's a pretty punchy sort of take compared to what else is sort of happening in the in the crypto world. But hence we designed it the way we did it. Yeah. Anyway, so I think it will be better when these NFTs can be sold within the stores. But it's also, I think, a bit naive to expect that will happen in the next 5 days. It's just something that we will all work on together and see how it unfolds.
Now, I think there's a sort of an optimism that the as blockchain becomes more prevalent, then obviously platform holders will have to sort of rethink stances or modify stances, and obviously with the whole sort of Apple Epic and all the other stuff going on with that particular app store, we can kind of see the direction of travel when it comes to sort of payment methods. As you say, no one can judge when it's actually going to happen, but clearly the time is coming closer when the sort of 70% split will be seen as anachronistic, and as new payment methods are available, obviously those will have to be adopted, or there's the potential for other people to come in and build new app stores. But that was a good description of V1, but obviously the product's called Infinite Arcade, so that doesn't sound very infinite. So where does do you want to give us a bit of the sort of the long-term sort of sizzle when we have an Infinite Arcade rather than sort of 10 games? Where would you like to see this in, let's say, a year's time, something like that?
Sure. So I mean, the internal number we all committed to, and what we already sort of communicated in the white paper is 200 games, and 200 games is beyond impossible if all of them need to be whatever, like a fortnight. But 200 games is nothing if you open it up to the entire creator community. You will get that in a day. So and the soft and rather difficult bit to balance is like, what is do we have a threshold of quality, etc., and who's the judge and how do we judge all that. So we want to just do our thing and use sort of common sense and probably a few key metrics to define what a good game means, and probably the first sort of 50 will be more like opportunistic and if a larger publisher comes in with a lot of games, and then so those numbers will be hit easily. We just want to see the community comment on what they want, because that's really exciting. And once you actually really start engaging with random people that you never spoke to, etc., or you don't have a warm intro to, they come in and they have opinions and ideas and they want to contribute. That's, I mean, people go on about community. It is really fascinating to just experience that. So we want that to happen, and we want that to guide the type of games and the volume of games. There's of course an element of, okay, players are valuable to studios. They bring playtime. They will maybe monetize, but they will be monetized in different ways. And then per studio, there's only going to be so many players that are engaging with this whole thing. So that's why we want to balance. It's in the end, we are running an economy effectively, so we want to balance the supply and demand side of things. But the way I would think of it in means of volume is that eventually this is truly self-service. You come in and you integrate, and then you're there, and probably there's some sort of minimal compliance and policy involved with it, but we would like it to be open. and then the way you get through as a studio through the noise and in front of people is how you engage with the community, whether through guilds or directly. I think both we will see both versions, and both versions together too. You then find your place. There is still a while until we all figure out what paid marketing, performance marketing, user action looks like in this world, in scalable ways. There are a bunch of ideas floating around, a bunch of tests happening, but until that's nailed to the level that is sort of today for free to play, we will see all sorts of creativity. So that's like the game player sort of volume, in means of the infinity of things. That's how we see it. 200 games, 200 good games, and we want to get to 1 million DAU by end of the year. So that's like 1 million players, or 800,000. The economy team will kill me, but yeah, something in that range. I think 1 million is nicer. Let's just give to 1 million is round. And we want to have the 200 games. And in means of depth, which is the other quite important dimension of this. I mean, the whole idea is that everybody gets a chance to try. So we don't expect people to drop everything else and suddenly build the deepest, craziest blockchain game just for Infinite Arcade. But definitely curious to see how people like the Loot project and the hype and excitement that created. Like we wanted to keep things very, very simple because I do believe in sort of emergent behavior and sort of bottom up inventions from the community. So we would love to see like how the Genesis Collection gamers is suddenly used in an actual game as actual characters, and for like even if it's like a simple runner game that they don't bring anything different, it's still like so these types of things. We already have conversations around these types of ideas, and we will see this happening too in the next 12 months, hopefully. It's a big challenge to technically enable that kind of flexibility or elasticity, and be a marketplace at the same time, because if they go that deep, what happens to the other guys? Like it's not easy, but it's possible. And I think that's way more exciting than you have true choice. If you like deep engagement with a game with your NFT, then you get that. If you like just to play the game and have a little bit of tokens sort of being saved up on the side, that's also fine. So that's the kind of level we would like to get to in the next 12, 18 months, I guess. But that means and where it takes us, unknown, to be honest. But this is what I can see as possibilities in the short term, and that's our goal.
And if you're running a platform, which is effectively what you are, is you sort of over time you want the depth of some of the products to to have that sort of level of quality, don't you? And that's, I think, particularly the point of a blockchain system is it works really well. I think the more complex individual projects are, because they're sort of capturing you're capturing more of the community, of the mindset of the community, the time of the community, the value of the community, and that sort of then over time means the developer has more sort of resources to build out bigger things. So that over time, that's sort of what you expect, which is not to say you don't want these other, you still want to provide the opportunity for people to launch something new and then sort of build it down, but you want that nice balance.
Exactly, and I think I mean, the initial version is where the meta game, the deeper game is simply you're buying these NFTs, you're breeding them, and that's a game a lot of people like to play. Right? Like when I first experienced sort of the magic of DeFi, it's crazy. I mean, like using a bank, and then you have to call them and stuff, and then you go and you sign in, and the amount and the ease. It's just it's so much fun, and I think a lot of people are in it for that part of it too, and hence like the meta game of being a manager and a scholar and a guild and all that. So that's what a lot of people are playing, and underneath you happen to solve a puzzle or go race with your horse or whatever. That's for some it's rather insignificant or just irrelevant almost. So we know this from community feedback and conversations we've been having. So that's why it's very simple. So we can get a lot of content in, good content in, and over time, as there's real choice, content quality will define who gets in front of players and who doesn't. So that's also just forces quality. Instead of just because you control the economy and the tokens, your game is the one game that everybody has to play that are interested in the economy. So this just decouples and creates more competition, and that typically leads to quality. But we also know there will be people who will be more interested and more deeply involved if there is something deeper they can do. And we didn't want to predefine that. We are not games people necessarily as a team. We are platform thinkers, if that makes sense. So we wanted to just enable the community, the partners, the studios to potentially come up with those things. So that's the expectation, that's the hope. And already with various sort of, especially on the guilds front, there's a lot of interesting thinking coming in. They're like, we want everybody in the guild to have this. This is like the baseline, because it's casual games, it's simple games. You don't need competitive skills. You don't need the training in investment, etc. So for us, like out of 100,000 Discord members, we want 100,000 to have this and play this. And on top of that, anyone who wants to go deeper and can go deeper, they play Cybele, they play Pegaxi or Axie, or other games to come, which is incredible to see, because it's exactly sort of the type of stuff we wanna see and hear. Time will tell, I guess, how deep things will get, but we want it to be possible.
Cool, good. Well, I think we will leave it there. I know you have a lot of plans for the future. We can come back and revisit them at a later time. Just before you go, people who are interested, where should they be going? What should they be looking for? What time frame are your first games going to be live?
Sure. So the website is www.infinitearcade.com. It's pretty simple, and we're on Twitter, Infinite_Arcade, Discord. All our community links are on the website. And the pre-sale for the OG collection of gamers is going live on March 9th, which is Wednesday next week, I think.
Cool. Yep.
And the games are going live end of March. The first 8 games are going live end of March. The best place to follow everything is Discord. We're on there all day, and happy to see people join in and ask questions.
Excellent, good, lovely. Well, we shall definitely be keeping an eye on the NFT drop, like a good NFT drop, and taking it from there. Excellent. Thank you very much for your time, Shake. Good to have you on.
Thank you so much, John. Bye.
And thank you, listeners and watchers, depending on how you are consuming the content. Remember, every week we are talking to the people who are building out this incredibly vibrant, interesting world of blockchain gaming. Loads of different sort of people at it, coming from different angles, and this is really the time to experiment. So I hope you're finding it interesting. Please give us a review if you are, but come back next time, see what's going on in the world of blockchain gaming world.